Hey, sixth grade. All right, so we are reading today for this lesson pages 223 through 225. We're going to be looking at machines today. So how hard do you think you are working while reading a page or of your textbook? Well, scientifically speaking, you are not doing any work when you read your textbook. Today we're going to learn what work is and what it is not. So let's look here at that definition. Suppose you push as hard as you can on a brick wall. Have you done any work? You might be sweating and exhausted, but you have not really done any work unless you have moved the wall. Work is defined as a force acting on something as it moves a certain distance. Applying a force to an object is not enough. You must make the object move. We have this here, which we're going to break down in a second. Force, or newtons, times distance, meters, equals work in joules. All right, so let's look at what all that means. Force is measured in newtons. Suppose we say that an object weighs 3 newtons. We are saying that 3 newtons of gravitational force are being exerted on the object. So newtons are a measure of both force and weight. A spring scale can measure an object's force in newtons. If you multiply the object's force by the distance the object travels, you will determine the amount of work done. This is a spring scale right here. The unit used to measure work is called the joule. If you lift an object that weighs 100 newtons upward 5 meters, you have done 500 joules or newton meters of work. But pushing a box against 20 newtons of friction over a distance of 25 meters also equals 500 joules of work. Because work equals force times distance, applying a greater force over a shorter distance involves the same amount of work as applying a lesser force for a greater distance. All right, so let's look at that. So you have 100 newtons times 5 meters equals 500 joules, or 20 newtons times 25 meters equals 500 joules. So you still have the same amount. It's just in a different way. All right. We'll come back to this creation corner in just a second. Let's look at a simple machine. A machine is any object that makes work easier. Simple machines do not reduce the amount of work done. However, a simple machine makes the work easier by strengthening the force used to do the work or by changing the direction of the applied force. Remember, a force is a push or a pull. The force applied to a simple machine is called the effort force or effort. The resistance force or resistance is the force that works against the effort. Sometimes the resistance force is an actual push or pull, but often it is the weight of the object being moved. There are 6 simple machines: lever, pulley, wheel and axle, inclined plane, wedge, and screw. All machines, even complex ones, are usually made of one or more of these simple machines. So today we're going to look at levers. The next lesson will cover some of these other simple machines. A lever is any bar that turns on a point. The spot where the bar turns or pivots is called the fulcrum. Some common levers include seesaws, wheelbarrows, and brooms. We use levers to lift objects that are otherwise too heavy for us. Archimedes, a mathematician who lived more than 200 years before Christ, was one of the first men to study simple machines. He once said that if he had a long enough lever and a fixed fulcrum, he could move the earth. Of course, Archimedes could never prove his statement, but he understood that levers make work easier. Scientists classify levers into 3 categories depending on where the effort and resistance are located in relation to the fulcrum. On a first-class lever, the fulcrum is located between the effort and the resistance. Seesaws and crowbars are first-class levers. If you use a paint can opener, you are using a first-class lever. The fulcrum is the rim of the can. Okay, so right here is your fulcrum. The lid provides the resistance force, and you're pushing down on the other end produces the effort. A pair of scissors is an example of a 2-class levers working is an example of 2 first-class levers working together. Sorry, I couldn't get that sentence out. All right, so here you are pushing down on this and then pushing down on this, and that will make, or push, I'm sorry, you're actually technically pushing up and down kind of at the same time. Your hand goes down, but this part is pushing upward. So that's your lever. your first class lever. All right, second class lever has the resistance between the effort and the fulcrum. Some examples of second class levers are a door and a wheelbarrow. Almost everything that has a hinge is a second class lever. An example of two second class levers working together is a nutcracker. All right, so you have your resistance is the door. The fulcrum is the this right here. Oh gosh, what is that called? The hinge, I'm sorry. Lost the word. And then your effort is you pulling at the door. And then on the wheelbarrow, you have your resistance is, you know, whatever is being held in here in this basket area. Your fulcrum is this thing here, the wooden part of the wheelbarrow, or could be plastic if you have a plastic wheelbarrow or metal. But these bars here, and then your effort is when you push up on that, then you're able to roll it better. All right, third class levers. All right, in a third class lever, the effort is between the resistance and the fulcrum. In these levers, a little movement by the effort gives greater movement at the resistance. Some examples of third class levers are a broom and a fishing pole. You can move the end of a broom a little, but at the floor, the broom moves much more than the little that you moved it. An example of two third class levers working together is a pair of tweezers. All right, so here's the broom. All right, your fulcrum is your hand, up here, the handle of the broom. The effort is you pushing the broom to sweep, and the resistance is this part down here where it's going against the floor while you're sweeping. All right, so let's go back real quick because I want to go back over the creation corner because this is really interesting that we actually have levers inside of our bodies. Man has used mechanical levers for thousands of years, but God created the original design. Many of the joints in the human body are levers. Your head pivots on a first-class lever. If you drop your head down, the resistance is your head. The fulcrum is the top of your spine, and the muscles in your back provide the effort. Your toe joints provide the fulcrums for second-class levers. The resistance is your weight, and the effort is your leg muscles. Your elbow is an example of a third-class lever. The joint is the fulcrum. The lower arm muscles provide the effort, and whatever you carry or throw is the resistance. It takes only a small movement at the joint to give a great force. Without these God-given levers, our bodies would not be able to perform many of the tasks that they normally perform. So here is the example of the elbow. Your resistance would be whatever you're carrying in your hand. This guy's lifting his weights. And then your effort force is right here. This is where, you're moving this up and down. Okay. And then the fulcrum would be your elbow here where it's hinging, like a hinge, like we talked about with the cabinets. All right. That is the start of our simple machines. So tune in next time for the rest of our simple machines. We're going to look at pulley, wheel and axle, incline plane, wedge, and screw. And we're going to also look at what is called a complex machine, which is the combination of several of these. All right, thanks guys. Bye.